p.m. on the news today, the big talking point is coming from Parliament, where, remember, there are questions being raised over whether a mimicry act amounts to an insult or has it been blown out of proportion. The big Parliament debate, what about the suspensions of MPs? Manish Tiwari and Prakash Zavadekar will join us on a face-off. Also, the new criminal law, citizen-friendly or draconian, we'll be looking at that big issue, a law that could change the lives of millions. 143 and counting. No, that's not the runs that the Indian cricket team has scored. That's the number of opposition MPs who have been suspended from Parliament so far, the highest ever in a single session. The opposition is up in arms, claiming democracy is being strangulated by the Modi government. But the government is now playing up a video of Trinamool Congress MP Kalyan Banerjee mocking the Rajya Sabha chair, triggering a war of words. The BJP demanding an apology, the Congress saying it's a diversion from the core issue. Why are opposition MPs being suspended? Take a look at all that's happening in what was once seen as the temple of our democracy.
The President of India has expressed her dismay, as did the country's Vice President and Prime Minister.
मैं खुद की परवाह नहीं करता, मेरी बेइज्जती कोई करता है मैं सहन करता हूं, खून की घूंट पीता हूं, पर मैं ये बर्दाश्त कभी नहीं करूंगा कि मेरे पद की गरिमा मैं सुरक्षित नहीं रख पाया.
It isn't just Trinamool MP Kalyan Banerjee who's under fire for the mimicry episode, but also Congress leader Rahul Gandhi for recording it on his mobile phone.
संसद में जिन लोगों को आपने भेजा है वो वाद विवाद के बदले जोकर का काम पकड़ लिया. उन्होंने जोकर वाला काम पकड़ लिया, नकल करने का काम पकड़ लिया, और ये कांग्रेस का नेता राहुल गांधी उसकी वीडियो बना रहा है.
The mimicry in the opposition's mock session outside Parliament has taken centre stage, as 143 MPs are suspended for allegedly disrupting proceedings inside with their protests over last week's security breach. The Congress and other opposition parties responded in kind, reissuing old clips of Prime Minister Narendra Modi mimicking Rahul Gandhi's hug-wink episode in the Lok Sabha. At the same time, the opposition alleges that the BJP ecosystem has amplified mimicry as an issue to divert attention from pressing questions at hand, most notably the suspension of the MPs themselves.
वहाँ पे हमारे 150 एमपीज को बाहर फेंक दिया है, ठीक है. उसके बारे में मीडिया में कोई चर्चा नहीं हो रही है, ठीक है. उनको आपने पार्लियामेंट से बाहर उठा के फेंक दिया, उसकी कोई चर्चा नहीं हो रही है. अदानी जी पे कोई चर्चा नहीं हो रही है. राफेल पे फ्रांस ने कहा है कि भैया इन्वेस्टिगेशन नहीं अलाउ हो रहा, उस पे कोई चर्चा नहीं हो रही है.
Meanwhile, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has insisted her party MP, now suspended, didn't mean to be disrespectful towards the Vice President.
क्यों आप ऐसा बात करते हैं? हम तो रेस्पेक्ट करते हैं सबको ना. एक डिसरेस्पेक्ट का कोई बात नहीं होता है. इसको जस्ट पॉलिटिकली कैजुअली, आपको तो पता भी नहीं चलता अगर राहुल जी वीडियो में छवि नहीं तुलता तो.
The BJP MPs have been unforgiving. They stood up in solidarity as the Parliamentary Affairs Minister read out a motion condemning the mimicry. The references to caste backgrounds have evoked sharp reactions from the Congress.
तो मेरे जाति को तो हमेशा इफेक्ट होता है, मुझे तो बोलने नहीं दिया जाता है. मैं जो सवाल उठाता हूँ उसको उत्तर नहीं मिलता.
Mimicry consumes the final stretch of Parliament's winter session, a sitting otherwise marked by an audacious security breach and a record suspension of MPs. Bureau Report, India Today.
And to get two perspectives, I'm joined by two leaders who've been union ministers, Manish Tiwari of the Congress and Prakash Zavadekar of the BJP. I spoke to them separately. Let me begin with the opposition and Manish Tiwari, the former INB minister and MP now in the Lok Sabha. Manish Tiwari, You are among what? 141 and counting suspended from Parliament. You're the opposition calling it a murder of democracy. The government is saying that the opposition has got desperate and is deliberately disrupting Parliament at every stage. Your take on all that has happened in the last few days?
Rajdeep, I think let's rewind to the trigger for what the opposition demanded. On the 13th of December 2023, which was the 22nd anniversary of the Parliament attack, you had an unprecedented intrusion into the Lok Sabha, where smoke bombs were set off by certain miscreants. Obviously, this was a very, very serious security breach, coming as it did on the anniversary of the Parliament attack. And especially when there were warnings galore in the public space from certain separatist and anti-national elements who may or may not be connected to what happened on the 13th of December 2023. Subsequently, the opposition demanded that the Home Minister, who is responsible for internal security, come and make a statement in the House as to how did this breach take place. Rather than make that statement, what the government decided to do was to lock, stock and barrel, suspend the entire opposition. The entire opposition virtually in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha was suspended primarily to evade responsibility from answering certain pointed questions on the Parliament security breach, which members of Parliament from the opposition benches would have put to the Home Minister. And number two, more pertinently, potentiously and perniciously, it was also to lay the foundations for passing the most Orwellian and dystopian bills, which are going to completely subvert and curtail the fundamental freedoms given in the Constitution of India, mainly the provisions in the Post Office Bill, the provisions in the Telecom Bill, and of course these three criminal bills, which are going to create an Orwellian state in this country.
You know, Mr. Tiwari, I gave you a long answer there because the fact is the opposition and the government should be able to resolve these issues. Surely nothing is irreconcilable. The sense one gets, Mr. Tiwari, is there is a complete breakdown in trust. And the government is accusing the Congress party in particular of simply being unwilling to actually reach out to the other side. You are saying the government is not listening to you. They are saying you are unwilling to even have a conversation with those in power. That's the problem, this complete breakdown of trust, Mr. Tiwari.
You're absolutely correct. That is the problem. And the responsibility squarely lies with the government. You tell me, was the demand of the opposition unreasonable that the Home Minister makes a statement in the House when the Home Minister and the Prime Minister are speaking outside Parliament? And if I remember correctly, there was a parliamentary convention that not only on policy matters, but on all important issues. When Parliament is in session, first and foremost, ministers are supposed to speak in the House and to the House. And rather than speaking in the House and to the House, you choose to speak outside, give certain inane explanations, and then lock, stock, and barrel throw the entire opposition out. If that is not subversion of democracy, then what else is this?
No, but the charge that the government is making, Mr. Tiwari, is that the opposition is routinely engaging in bad behavior. Placards, slogan shouting, rushing into the well of the House. Now, Kalyan Banerjee, Trinamool MP, mimicking the Vice President outside Parliament, making fun of the government. Rahul Gandhi taking out that video. You all are ridiculing constitutional functionaries, says the government. They will then go to the people now and say that you're desperate after your defeats in the assembly polls, that you are, you paint you in bad light. You may claim you are trying to save democracy. The government is saying you are the ones responsible for preventing Parliament from functioning normally.
Well, Rajdeep, some of the members who have been suspended have never, ever in the past 5 years, ever stepped into the well of their House. If some of us were compelled, constrained to step into the well of the House, it was primarily because the government was behaving in an extremely stubborn and a petulant manner. If the government does not have the conviction of courage to face the House on perhaps the most grave and unprecedented security breach which has taken place in the last 22 years, then we won't be members of parliament worth our salt demanding accountability out of the government. And insofar as painting people in a bad light, well, that is for the people to decide that do they want a country where the entire opposition is suspended and bills are railroaded and ramrodded through the House, bills which are going to create an Orwellian dystopia in this country, which is going to turn this country into a police state. I think these are very germane issues which people will have to apply themselves to. And I don't think there's any point in getting sidetracked. The fundamental principle, central issue is that for the first time in 70 years, you are seeing the unprecedented suspension of the entire opposition, both in the Lok Sabha and in the Raj Sabha. What is the legitimacy of the House? In fact, government has delegitimized parliamentary democracy.
Mr. Tiwari, the question will still be asked. All of this can be resolved through conversation. It appears that the leader of the opposition also do not wish to speak to the government. Apparently, there were 3 occasions when the chairman of the Rajya Sabha invited the leader of the opposition. He did not even attend the meeting. Surely you are a senior enough member to know that there are these spaces that should be there for a constructive dialogue. Are you only going to blame the government? Is the opposition also not reluctant to reach out across the aisle?
Well, let me rewind to 2012. And of course, you've been a journalist now for the past 4 decades. You would remember this in perspective. The late Mr. Arun Jaitley said, disruption it is a legitimate parliamentary tactic. And so when the then leader of opposition said disruption is a legitimate parliamentary tactic, who reached out in order to ensure that parliament starts functioning again? It was the government. And so therefore the responsibility to run the House primarily is of the government. And what was the opposition's demand? The opposition wasn't demanding that the heavens and skies should open up and fall down. All that the opposition was demanding, let there be a statement on this unprecedented security breach by the Home Minister, followed by a discussion as to how this needs to be preempted and prevented from ever happening again. Where was the unreasonableness in this demand? Why did it have to become the trigger, to wholesale suspend the entire opposition? And this is not the first time when members of parliament, either from the treasury benches when they were in the opposition or those who are currently in the opposition, have gone to the well of the House with placards. So this is not the first time this has happened. But what happened for the first time after a span of 2 decades was an unprecedented breach in the Lok Sabha. It's another matter that they were carrying smoke canisters. God forbid if they were carrying something more lethal, you can just imagine the kind of damage and the kind of tragedy that may have unfolded. And I hasten to say that if the security breach would have occurred because opposition member would have signed those passes, well, all hell would have broken loose in this country.
Then tell me, therefore, in conclusion, Mr. Tiwari, only a few days left in this winter session and the 17th Lok Sabha will effectively come to a close early next year. Where does all this lead parliamentary democracy? Will it now, the battle be fought in the court of the people during the elections? That the 17th Lok Sabha, for all practical purposes, is dead and gone. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct. It now goes to the court of the people. I do not think after the extremely rash manner and the high-handed and arrogant manner in which the entire opposition has been suspended for making a very reasonable, just and a legitimate demand, there can be a way forward except that the government withdraws the suspension of all the members of parliament. And if the Home Minister can come to the House and speak on the criminal bills ad nauseum and at length, I'm sure the Home Minister can also come and make a statement on the security breach which occurred on the 23rd of December, on the 13th of December, 2023 in the Lok Sabha.
No, point taken, but you are calling for a withdrawal of the suspensions. In return, our opposition MP is willing to apologize for the mimicking of the Vice President, for constantly entering the well of the House, slogan shouting. Both sides are going to have to take a step back, surely.
Well, Rajdeep, according to me, that's a complete non-issue. And therefore, Mr. Kalyan Banerjee, a senior lawyer of the Calcutta High Court, if I heard him correctly, say that he was doing a stand-up act. So therefore, it was not as if, it was directed at somebody. So that's sorry, between Mr. Kalyan Banerjee and all those people who have taken umbrage to whatever he has done. They can resolve it amongst themselves. But the more serious and fundamental issue is, do you want to run a democracy by suspending the entire opposition? I think that's the more germane issue.
Also a fundamental question, Mr. Tiwari, and I speak here as a taxpayer citizen in this country. Our money, taxpayers' money is responsible for parliamentary democracy to function. Do you and others across the aisle recognize that it is taxpayers who are watching what is going on in Parliament with increasing concern?
Well, I think taxpayers in this country also need to apply themselves, Rajdeep, as to whether they want a parliament which is absolutely bereft of the opposition to function. Do the taxpayers want that kind of a parliament? Is that kind of a dystopian democracy that we are looking for? I think there are far, far more fundamental questions which just go beyond the financing of parliament, which are very germane to the survival of us as a republic. I think that's what is at stake.
And joining me now to get another perspective is the BJP's former Parliamentary Affairs Minister and its MP, Prakash Zavadekar, joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Zavadekar. How do you see what's happened in Parliament over the last few days? 141 MPs suspended, government going ahead passing important bills. Is this the way Parliament should be functioning in this country, sir?
You asked the very right question. Let me tell you the chronology. These two men jumping from the gallery is not a small incident. It was on 22nd anniversary of the first attack. It is nothing less than an attack. And this was not a coincidence. This was a deliberate conspiracy. That is very clear when they chose 13th December. It was not children play or youth play. It was something much deeper to it. The investigation will reveal it.
No, so why should the Home Minister of the country, Home Minister of the country not give a statement? You're saying that there's a deeper conspiracy. Opposition is saying Home Minister should have given a statement. Parliament would have been functioning.
Rajdeep, this is wrong. You have seen it. First this is Parliament. Parliamentary security is the domain of Speaker. So Speaker gave the statement first, assured that there is investigation and we will tell you afterwards what happens. More importantly, just remember, all the opposition parties on the day of first attack on Parliament went to Atalji and said, we are with you, we are in solidarity with you. This didn't happen here.
No, I take that. That's a good point, but sir, you will recall, sir, just a minute. You will recall in 2001, Mr. L.K. Advani, then Home Minister, gave a statement. The point is, what is so difficult for the Home Minister to have made a statement? This entire issue could have been resolved.
No, that is wrong. The entire issue would not have resolved because they want to do politics. What we have seen, Home Minister सदन में आओ, Home Minister सदन में आओ, Home Minister आने के बाद उनका मत सुनो, फिर Prime Minister सदन में आओ, Prime Minister सदन में आओ, Prime Minister आने के बाद उनको बोलने न दो. ये ऑपोजिशन की हताशा, निराशा और होने वाले पराजय का एहसास बोल रहा है. और इसलिए ये अब सुधरने वाले नहीं. उनको लगता है ऐसा ही करके हमें वोट मिलेगा. दूसरा महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा कि आप जाके मिमिक्री करते हो और उसका शूटिंग करता है. इज इट ए civic behavior, or if you do it, you are publishing it. This is worst.
No, so
Nowhere
your-
we have seen
so
a
your
responsibility
point-
doing this.
your point now-
Will Kalyan, 1 minute.
Yes.
Will Kalyan Banerjee do it with their party boss? Will Rahul do it with their party boss? No. And you are not doing with party boss. It is a constitutional position. And what they have done? They have insulted president. She is tribal. They are always insult and don't give importance, or don't talk about her in glowing terms. More importantly, they are 20 years, and you are witness to it from Gujarat, that 20 years on, they have given more than 100 galis to Prime Minister. He is OBC, she is tribal, he is Jat. You are denigrating the social, those underprivileged groups which are now in power. You are biased.
Okay.
And you
okay.
want only your family to rule.
2 points, Mr. Javadekar. Just a minute. 2 points come from what you have said. You're saying the opposition has mocked
Yes.
the vice president. They have been putting out, they did a video recording of Kalyan Banerjee doing a mimicry of Vice President Dhankar. Now the opposition is alleging that Prime Minister Modi also mocked the former chairman of Rajya Sabha, Hamid Ansari, during his farewell. They are saying this mimicry is not the real issue. The real issue is the suspension. It's not as if politicians don't mimic each other. The fact is the BJP is using this to distract from the real issue of 141 MPs, 141, sir, being suspended.
No. In all Congress states, first day they throw all the BJP MLAs out in many states. I have seen this. That is not what we are not doing that. With pains, the House has to take that decision. When you are insulting the chairman, what will happen? And you continue that in the other house also. So, and disturbance is not parliament. And disturbance, not allowing any functioning to do, not allowing laws to be passed. Even today, yesterday, what happened? They were all in jail. Even Digvijay Singh and others were in jail. This is too much. Never seen before.
But you're saying the opposition MPs.
Good.
You're saying the opposition MPs are disrupting parliament because they are desperate, because they have been defeated in the election, therefore they are behaving in this way, and there is no place in parliament for this kind of behavior. Now, I want to point out what Arun Jaitley sir said in 2011 when he was in the opposition. Just a minute, sir. He said parliament's job is to conduct discussions, but many a time parliament is used to ignore issues, and in such situations obstruction of parliament is in the favor of democracy. Therefore parliamentary obstruction is not undemocratic. Arun Jaitley. Sushma Swaraj, in 2012, when in the opposition, not allowing parliament to function is a form of democracy like any other form. So when you were in the opposition, you did the same, but there was no mass suspension.
To it. No, but I tell you, that time we never disrupted in this way, the way they are not allowing to function.
What's the difference?
And therefore, what we are saying is, there is difference. We never did this kind of insulting, abusing and everything, denigrating positions. We never did it. We never said Manmohan. Rahul tore his ordinance, not BJP. We always said Manmohan ji. Even today we say Rahul ji.
So you did not allow, I might just point out to you, because history, people forget history. In 2004, when Manmohan Singh was first elected, the BJP MPs did not even allow him to introduce his Council of Ministers. They disrupted Parliament. 2008, they did not allow him to reply to the no confidence motion. That was wrong. This is wrong. You are a parliamentary affairs minister. Don't you think it would be better Speaker calls both sides, they sit together over a cup of tea, and they should resolve this? It is the responsibility of Speaker, Treasury benches and Parliamentary Affairs Minister.
1 minute. But you said it right, that chairman himself asked or he called immediately on the first day, I am calling all the floor leaders in my chamber immediately, and he adjourned the house. Nobody went. Then 3 times he asked that Kharge ji, leader of opposition, and will meet me in my chamber, and therefore he tried all his best, but nothing, because they don't want house to run smoothly. They want to blame somehow. See, the first discussion in this session was on economic situation, on their demand. 2 days there 26 people spoke. But ultimately, after Nirmala Sitharaman's reply and performance of the government, everybody was flattened. Nothing, no reply. And therefore, they are afraid of what is happening and their future they are seeing. And therefore, we are saying that chairman called all floor leaders, not once, twice. And he called thrice Kharge ji as a LOP in his chamber. They never turned out. Is it not an insult? Is it not an insult?
So therefore, Mr. Zavadekar...
Is it a parliamentary practice?
So Mr. Zavadekar, as one of our senior most politicians who's also been a former parliamentary affairs minister, what's the way forward? Because now it seems it will be Nele pe Dela. I speak to congressmen and they say, remember what BJP did during the Manmohan years. Now you are telling me that they are not even coming for the chairperson meeting. My worry is that the parliamentary democracy, we are taxpayers, sir. The parliamentary democracy has become dysfunctional. Are you not worried? What is the way forward?
Basically, let me tell you that we never rejected the offer of vice president, that is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, to come to his chamber. There used to be meetings, there used to be solutions. But here, they are not ready to go to his chamber. What does this mean? This is more insult.
So is there a complete breakdown?
You can run the
parliament
and come at a solution.
So is there a complete breakdown? Do you see a solution? Is there any solution?
No. I see always a solution, because I am a very positive man and I never see somebody that nothing is unsortable. The thing is, they must learn the humility. They must learn the practices. They must honor people and the posts.
Okay.
And they must respond to their call.
Can I ask you
Yes.
I take your point, but can I ask you in conclusion, do you believe that mass suspensions is the right thing to do? Or do you believe that this is the right way for the speaker or the chairperson to be able to suspend people, these mass suspensions? Do you think that will solve anything?
3 days you not allowing this. This is a penultimate session. Actually, this is the for business. This is the last session, because from now there will be a
vote on account.
And there will be, so we are going into elections. So practically these are 2 important bills, but you are not allowing to take up. So this is and you are not respecting the invitation of vice president. That is more insulting, and what they have abused is unpardonable.
Okay. Let me leave it there, Mr. Zavadekar. Appreciate your joining me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you've heard 2 sides of the story, and we leave you, the viewers, to judge who is right and who is wrong. My own sense is, cutting across party aisles, MPs in the government need to be held more accountable. Those in the opposition need to be more responsible. Accountability missing among the treasury benches, responsibility missing among the opposition MPs. All you need is to start samvad, dialogue. That's the least we expect from our politicians across party lines. Meanwhile, while the MPs were being suspended, guess what? The government has gone ahead and passed 3 major laws to replace the Criminal Procedure Code and criminal laws of a previous colonial era. The proposed laws are seen to have some good features, but many that may raise concerns over the laws becoming even more draconian. Take a look at tonight's report on the new Criminal Procedure Code.
जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए हैं, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्षों प्रस्ताव स्वीकृत और विधि यथा संशोधित पारित हुआ.
The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, and the Bharatiya Sakshya Bill. The new laws to replace the British-era criminal law is passed by the Lok Sabha by voice vote. With 143 MPs suspended, the opposition benches were mostly empty when the debate on the bill took place on Wednesday. Home Minister Amit Shah claimed the new laws are citizen-centric, unlike the colonial-era code.
मोदी जी ने प्रधानमंत्री बनने के बाद गुलामी की मानसिकता और गुलामी के सारे चिन्ह इस देश में से जल्दी मिट जाए और नए आत्मविश्वास के साथ महान भारत की रचना का रास्ता प्रशस्त हो, इस पर आग्रह रखा है.
ब्रिटिश काल की गुलामी के सारे चिन्ह समाप्त कर इस संपूर्ण भारतीय कानून.
So what will change once the bills become law? Here are the good bits. First information report or FIRs can be filed in any police station but in the same state or union territory where the crime is committed. The police must complete probe within 180 days. Courts will frame charges within 60 days and give verdict in 30. Under trials will be eligible for automatic bail after serving half their sentence. There will be a witness protection scheme for witnesses in sensitive cases. Women victims of crimes like rape can give testimony at home and their identity will be protected. There will be mandatory video recording of police searches. Now the concerns. Police can seek 150-day custody of suspect anytime within 60 to 90 days of arrest, depending on the offence. Currently, the police can get 15-day custody from the date of arrest. A court can proceed with trial if the accused does not appear for 90 days. The accused can also be convicted. Agencies can seize digital devices like phone and laptops during an investigation, which could erode right to privacy. Police get powers to attach property deemed as proceeds of crime. This could lead to arbitrary asset seizures based on suspicion. There are inadequate provisions for default bail. In other key changes, the definition of terrorism is changed to include damage to economic stability of the country and use of criminal force against public functionaries. The government has gone by past Supreme Court rulings and has not made adultery or gay sex a crime.
While these reforms signify a promising step towards a more equitable system, as stated by the government, they also pose significant challenges in striking a delicate balance between citizens' rights and the criminal legal proceedings, which warrants a careful consideration of the proposed changes which are soon expected to come into force. Reporting from New Delhi, this is Nalini Sharma for India Today.
So let's try and decode the new criminal code for you. What's good? What's worrying in the new criminal code? Is it really citizen-friendly? Or are some of the changes draconian and giving the police and the government enormous, arbitrary, sweeping powers? I'm joined by two senior advocates. Aman Lekhi is former Additional Solicitor General at the Supreme Court, and Colin Gonsalves, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, joins me. Colin Gonsalves, the government claims the proposed criminal laws are people-centric and that their main aim was to protect the constitutional human personal rights of citizens. The colonial laws have been done away. This is now the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita that will be citizen-centric. Why are you and other human rights activists so worried about these new laws?
Well, Rajdeep, if the British laws were colonial and draconian, I want to show you very quickly how the laws enacted by this government are 10 times more draconian. First, in British period, you could keep a person in police custody for a maximum of 15 days. This limitation was put because torture takes place in police custody. Now that 15 days has been extended to 90 days and more. That's a shocking provision enabling police torture. Third, the UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the terrorism statute provisions have been incorporated in the new law in toto. But two important safety provisions have been removed. First is the provision of sanction. Under UAPA, if you go under the terrorism statutes, under UAPA, after the police gather all the information and make the charge sheet, that charge sheet will not be filed until sanction is obtained by government, from government. In this law now, that very important precaution that sanction should be obtained has been removed. The second safety clause, which is the authority. In the UAPA Act, the terrorism statute, an independent authority looks at all the evidence gathered by the police and then after x-raying the evidence will decide whether the police should be allowed to file a terrorism charge sheet. This second safety clause, which Chidambaram introduced in Parliament, is now deleted. Next is FIR. I heard you speak on the FIR. The FIR is to be filed immediately on a citizen making a complaint of a cognizable offence. That is the 5-judge bench decision in Lalita Kumari's case. This was done because people go with complaints, very serious complaints, and the police do not register complaints saying that we have to do a preliminary inquiry. Now, Lalita Kumari said nothing doing. If you get a complaint, register it immediately. You don't do the preliminary inquiry till after you register the complaint. Now, in the new law, they go back contrary to the 5-judge bench decision and say the FIR will only be registered after the preliminary inquiry. Now look at the DK Basu guidelines. These were issued to make sure that when a person is arrested, he is not submitted to torture. All these 6 guidelines deleted. First, the identity of the police officer carrying out the interrogation was to be entered in a register. Deleted. The place and time of arrest was to be put in an arrest memo and signed by the arrestee, so that later on you can't say that this is not the place, this is not the time. Why was this introduced? Because the police would arrest and show the arrest, and 1 week later, after the person has been thoroughly tortured. Deleted. The injury report, where you're supposed to be taken to the hospital to make sure that torture has not been done, has to be signed by the arrestee. Deleted. The medical examination to be done every 24 hours, so that if any torture is done after arrest, that torture will show up in the medical report. Deleted. The memo of arrest and the health report showing injuries is to be sent to the magistrate within 24 hours. Deleted. These guidelines are to be shown at police stations. Deleted. Now I take you to the statements of the police, statements given to the police. Now these statements were never signed. Even in the British period, these statements were never signed because the police could force people to sign certain statements. And now what do you have? Videography. And videography is very tricky because you can tie a man's hands and legs to a chair and the videography will be from the neck upwards, and all that testimony will be taken as admissible in evidence. Legal aid from the point of arrest, not just when the matter comes to court. Legal aid from the point of arrest, riot victims' legal aid, all this gone. And you will only get legal aid at the time when the matter comes to court.
Effectively, what you're saying is it gives you claim the police far more draconian arbitrary powers rather than what the government is claiming, which is that it will result in police accountability. That's, the government says this will make the police more accountable. You're saying it will actually give sweeping powers without any safety clauses in place. Am I correct?
They say
broadly.
Yes, and Rajdeep, 1 second. It's funny to hear them say colonial. So when you compare the colonial with the present government is 10 times more draconian than our British masters.
Okay, that's
unbelievable.
That's your subjective view. I want to focus only on the clauses. The worry, therefore, Aman Lekhi, that human rights activists and lawyers have is that this is going to give wide sweeping powers to the police without enough safety checks in place. Do you agree with that, or do you believe it was necessary to reform some of these colonial laws?
Well, Rajiv, there's many things which cause concern. There are some things which are good, but
what's good? What's good according to you? Because we've heard a lot of the bad things from Colin. Tell us first what's good.
No. You see, as far as the good is concerned, insofar as certain other offences, particularly enhancement of the punishment and dealing with those private offences is concerned, there are certain changes which are positive. However, when we are dealing with these laws, particularly in the context of a polity which is in some way going to be affected by the state, the expansive and wide-ranging cause which entitles the state to interfere cannot be unreasonably enlarged. And that is where the problems are actually stepping. There are 2-3 points I want to make over here. One, this is a case sort of codification but recodification. Now this is very, very pertinent, because when you deal with recodification, you talk about how laws are developed and how aspects of law have become redundant or archaic. So that requires a scrutiny of the development of the law and development of the law to identify areas of concern. And areas of concern requires the collective participation and a reasoned deliberation, which is absent over here, apparent in the haste in which this whole thing has happened, and eventually it has been passed. So the basis of codification itself collapses. This is number one. Number two, insofar as the address is concerned, the address of the Home Minister is high on rhetoric and appeals actually to emotion. And I'll deal with one very significant aspect of it, where the Home Minister has made a distinction, in my opinion, a completely misconceived one, between Rashtradroh and Rajdroh, to say that, see, we've done away with Rashtradroh and we have only Rajdroh. Now, this is a completely misleading statement. Why? Because in law, there's a distinction between treason and sedition. As far as Deshdroh is concerned, that is treason. That is war against the state. Treason remains on the statute book. It was there under the old code. It remains under the new code. So as far as doing away with treason is concerned, that is wrong.
No, so they've not done away with sedition. They've not done away with sedition, actually widened its ambit.
No. They have not. First of all, they've retained, first of all, the basic distinction is wrong because treason is there. Number two, the description which is made of sedition is also wrong, because what is being suggested is that the old act permitted prosecution for acts protesting against governmental activity, which is again wrong, because as far as the old statute is concerned, there were two explanations, apart from a third which we are not concerned, which specifically excluded disapprobation of the government. It was not as if the law as it stood permitted the imposition of an offence of sedition mainly because you disagreed with the government. The problem with that law was not the content. The content which is there now is more or less similar to what was there earlier. The problem with that law was the ease of applicability, because the Supreme Court judgment had said that mere tendency, not intention, mere tendency could cause prosecution for sedition. So as far as the content was concerned, the content was defined. It was never allowed to transgress certain defined limits, and it did not cover criticism of the government. So this particular suggestion, to which there was much applause in Parliament at this distinction is concerned, is completely wrong. And it would have been more appropriate the person better versed in law dealt with this very technical aspect. Number three, even your program is talking about these are not colonial laws. Now, I have a very, very serious objection to this, because this suggests some kind of cultural hegemony of the past and internalization of some kind of subordination. What it ignores is that our laws are now distinctively Indian, and we have a very rich jurisprudence. And this jurisprudence is typically Indian, and there is nothing colonial about it. And the biggest tribute to that jurisprudence is that the altered laws draw upon the same law. It is not as if the content of the law has altered to say something different from what was understood earlier. The terminology has changed and the numbers have changed. So it is not a violent departure from the past.
You're saying it's not a violent departure, but Colin Gonsalves...
Now the problem with this... it is not a departure at all. Now the problem here is the fourth point.
Go ahead. Finish, Aman, with your fourth point.
You're saying something, Rajdeep. Yeah. The fourth point. The fourth point. You see, it is not the intent. Please understand, when we are dealing with penal laws, because the focus of the Home Minister was that we are motivated by the best of motives. But it is not the intent, but the expression, because the worth of the law is in an application, and application draws upon terminology. So precision in terminology is absolutely basic and goes to discretion. The manner in which they are drafted, insofar as the terminology is concerned, concedes to the executive powers, which can be expansive and therefore cause more than necessary interference with liberty. Now, if that is so, that will be an undemocratic, forget colonial
I
or
take your point. I think both of you are saying, both of you are virtually expressing similar concerns. In a sense, Colin Gonsalves, the fear therefore you all have is that rather than reforming the police, which is really the way to deal with the criminal procedure code and which is what the Supreme Court has recommended, you believe this is only going to end up giving more discretion and arbitrary powers to the police to arrest, particularly under potentially draconian laws, because terrorism, for example, will also, corruption, organized crime will come under the ambit of ordinary criminal law. So you use the provisions of UAP and bring them under this law and thereby expand the powers of the police. Am I correct?
Correct, Rajdeep, and more important than that is the government at the highest level, that's supposed to be honest and transparent with people, is telling the people that we are reforming. We are making the law more Indian and better. Now look at the sedition law. Supreme Court stayed sedition. Why? Because words, strong words, people were being arrested for sedition. But sedition law in India under Kedarnath's case says strong words is not good enough. You cannot prosecute a person for strong words. It has to be strong words combined with violence. Now you look at the sedition section, they've introduced the same British law. Whoever by words attacks the government, etc., etc. But attacking the government by words is not a crime, and it's not sedition. Look at gay sex. The Supreme Court read it down. Gay sex, which is voluntary, non-coercive, is not a crime. And now again they sneak in the same old section that on gay sex, because they can't get over the fact that the Supreme Court had declared that section unconstitutional. Look at false arrest. A false arrest can have a person in jail for 5-6 years. Guess what the fine is? Under this present government, the fine for false arrest is 1,000 rupees. So Rajdeep, they're just bluffing the country, fooling the country with their words and their rhetoric and their speeches. But the law remains much more draconian than the British. This is worse than the British.
Those are very strong words, and those words hopefully will prompt a wider discussion. We will continue having that discussion on these shows in future programs. This is a law which should have been really had a sustained discussion in Parliament. What else have we seen? Suspension, unfortunately, of opposition MPs and the bills being pushed through. Once again, it's for you, the viewers, to judge whether that's the right way forward. Colin Gonsalves, Aman Lekhi, for giving us an initial legal perspective to these new laws. Thank you very much. Let's turn to tonight's ground report. It comes from Tamil Nadu, where heavy rains and flooding continue to paralyze lives in the southern districts of the state. The authorities are now carrying out rescue operations on the war footing. According to reports, the unprecedented rainfall has now claimed around 10 lives and brought the region to a standstill, leaving individuals, families and a trainload of people stranded. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin met Prime Minister Modi, requested him to release 2,000 crores from the National Disaster Fund to bolster the relief efforts. Let's get you our ground report.
After 3 days, this is the situation on ground. Water, though it has receded in some places, there are many pockets still in Thoothukudi which are still flooded, and some places are completely cut off, and people are stranded without food and water there for several days now. There is no electricity, there is no communication network that is available, and this is the situation in many places where people, it's difficult for them to come out. They don't have basic essentials. So that is the reason why more and more rescue teams are being pressed into action by the state government, by the armed forces. several helicopters also deployed in areas where the rescue vehicles such as these cannot reach. So it is the Indian Navy, Indian Air Force that's carrying out these rescue operations in those places because it's simply not accessible for others. And you can see the visuals, the kind of flooding that is there in Thoothukudi at present. Though the rains have stopped, it's taking a lot of time for the water to recede, and that is becoming a big challenge for the government. And that is the reason why more and more resources are being mobilized at this point in time. With video journalist Daniel, this is Shilpa Nair in Thoothukudi for India Today.
Our thoughts and prayers with the people of Tamil Nadu. Sometimes you wonder if there was a drain pipe leak in a Mumbai or Delhi, it would be breaking news through the day. Tamil Nadu has been reeling under these flood waters now for days. Our thoughts and prayers with the people of that state. I want to leave you with an interesting image tonight because India Today has accessed the first photo of Tiger Memon, one of the key accused and guilty persons in the Mumbai blast case of 1993. 30 years later, this is how Tiger Memon, the terrorist, looks. He fled to Dubai and after that went to Pakistan. I remember these images well because I was covering those 93 Mumbai blasts, and I've often said it was the most terrifying day in my career as a journalist. I will not forget Tiger Memon, earlier and now. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Let's hope one day the tiger is brought into a cage here. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.